The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES Defiant. Admiral James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive Galactic Council station grew larger in the view screen. His weathered face remained calm, but his eyes betrayed a mixture of wonder and caution. "Approaching docking coordinates, Admiral," said Lieutenant Mike Reed, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. "Council control has granted us clearance." Walker nodded. "Take us in, Lieutenant." "Nice and easy." This was humanity's first official meeting with the Galactic Council, a federation of 27 advanced alien species that had ruled this section of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. The discovery of their communication beacon near Jupiter's orbit just 8 months ago had changed everything for Earth. "Nervous, sir?" asked Commander Beth Wilson, his second in command. She stood beside him, her uniform crisp and perfect. "Cautious," Walker replied. "We're newcomers to a very old game." The Defiant slowed as it approached the station, a massive structure that resembled a metallic flower with 7 enormous petals stretching outward from a central hub. Each petal housed representatives from different sectors of Council space. Humanity was about to take its first steps into a much larger universe. "Final approach," Reed announced. "Docking in 3, 2, 1. Contact. Docking complete." Walker took a deep breath. "All right. First contact team with me." The 5-person team moved through the ship toward the airlock. Besides Walker and Wilson, there was Dr. Alex Barnes, Earth's leading xenobiologist, Professor John Miller, linguistic expert, and Major Tom Davis, head of security. They all wore their best uniforms, representing the United Earth government with dignity and pride. "Remember," Walker said as they waited for the airlock to cycle, "we're here to establish peaceful relations. We observe, we listen, we learn." The door hissed open, revealing a reception chamber decorated with strange symbols and flowing architecture, unlike anything human designers had created. 3 aliens waited for them. The tallest stood nearly 8 feet high with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Beside it was a short, stocky being with orange scales and large, unblinking eyes. The third looked almost human, except for its silver skin and completely black eyes. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the silver being said in perfect English. "I am High Counselor Vex. We are honored by your presence." Walker stepped forward. "The honor is ours, High Counselor. I am Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Fleet. We come in peace and friendship." Vex's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Of course. The Galactic Council has observed your species with great interest. Your rapid technological advancement is remarkable." Walker caught something in Vex's tone, a slight hesitation that triggered his instincts. 25 years in space had taught him to trust those instincts. "We are eager to learn from the Council's wisdom," Walker replied carefully. "And so you shall," said Vex. "Come. The Council chambers await. We have prepared a welcoming ceremony for humanity's representatives." As they followed the aliens through gleaming corridors, Walker noticed how other species stopped to stare at the humans, some with curiosity, others with what looked like concern. "The Council offers Earth provisional membership status," Vex explained as they walked. "With certain trade restrictions, of course. Standard procedure for emerging species." "Of course," Walker echoed, while making eye contact with Wilson. Her slight frown told him she'd noticed it too. Beneath the warm welcome was something calculated. The doors to the Council chamber slid open, revealing a vast circular room with tiered seating where dozens of alien representatives watched their entrance. Their expressions were unreadable, but Walker felt the weight of their gaze. "The newest children of the stars arrive," Vex announced to the chamber. "Let us welcome humanity to the galactic community." Applause and strange clicking sounds filled the room, but as Walker looked around at the assembled aliens, he couldn't shake a troubling thought. This wasn't just a welcome. It was an assessment. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. Earth had established 3 colony worlds: New Hope, Frontier, and Liberty. Each colony thrived under the watchful eyes of Council observers who claimed to be there to help but seemed more interested in monitoring than assisting. Science Officer Emma Reed stood in the observation deck of Liberty Colony's main research facility. The red dwarf star cast an eerie glow across the planet's surface. She frowned at the data on her tablet. "These energy readings don't make sense," she muttered to herself. Her assistant, Paul Green, looked over her shoulder. "What's wrong?" he asked. "These spikes near Earth's defense grid. They match Council scanner signatures, but there's no scheduled inspection." Emma tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear. "This is the third time this month." On the Galactic Council's central station, Admiral James Walker, now Earth's ambassador, strode purposefully through the diplomatic wing. 5 years of dealing with the Council had taught him patience, but today that patience had run out. Ambassador Walker greeted High Counselor Vex with a practiced smile. "What brings you to my office unannounced?" Walker placed a data chip on Vex's desk. "Unauthorized scans of Earth's defense systems. Care to explain?" Vex's silver skin seemed to dim slightly. "A misunderstanding, surely. Perhaps routine astronomical surveys by our science vessels." 17 routine surveys in the same sector this month. Walker's voice remained calm, but his eyes were hard. "The Council promised technological exchange. Instead, you restrict our ships to limited territories while your vessels roam freely through our system." Vex spread his four-fingered hands. "Security protocols for provisional members are standard. Your species advances so quickly. The Council merely ensures stability." Walker leaned forward. "Is that what you call it?" After the tense meeting, Walker contacted his old friend, Defense Minister Tom Davis, via secure channel from his private quarters. "They're hiding something, Tom," Walker said, keeping his voice low. "The trade restrictions keep getting tighter. Our observers report Council ships gathering near the Arcturus sector." Davis's face on the screen looked grim. "We've noticed. 3 of our deep space probes went silent last week. Council blamed it on solar activity, but there wasn't any." "What about Project Omega?" "On schedule. The fleet will be ready in 6 months, hidden exactly where no one would think to look." Davis rubbed his forehead. "The Council thinks our ships can only reach 15 light years. They don't know about the new drives." "Keep it that way," Walker said. "Something's coming. I can feel it." Meanwhile, in a sealed chamber deep within the Council station, Vex met with the Secret Council, the true power behind the public face of the Galactic Federation. "The humans continue to develop weapons," Vex reported. "Their adaptability exceeds our projections." An ancient being with translucent skin and glowing eyes spoke from the head of the table. "Their expansion must be contained. We have seen this pattern before. Young species with aggressive tendencies and rapid technological growth become threats." "Ambassador Walker suspects our intentions," Vex cautioned. "It no longer matters," said another Council member, this one with features hidden beneath a shimming hood. "The containment plan is ready. Their defensive capabilities have been thoroughly mapped." "And the human colonies?" asked Vex. "Will be isolated first, then Earth itself." The Ancient One's voice was like dry leaves rustling. "We have done this before, Vex. 23 species have been guided into proper roles within our hierarchy. Humans will learn their place." Back on Liberty Colony, Emma Reed sent her findings to Earth via secure channel, unaware that Council algorithms were already flagging her communications for review. "The scans are focused on weak points in our defensive grid," she told her superior. "It's not random. They're mapping targets." Above Earth, a Council observation ship adjusted its position, its powerful sensors directed toward the planet's northern hemisphere. Inside, alien technicians cataloged defense installations while transmitting data to the gathering fleet just beyond Saturn. The countdown to betrayal had begun. The attack came without warning. Ambassador Walker was in the middle of peace talks when the lights in the Council chamber flickered. A young human aide rushed in, face pale with shock. "Sir, we've lost contact with Earth's defense network," she whispered urgently. Before Walker could respond, Council security forces entered the chamber. Their weapons were drawn. Ambassador Walker, High Counselor Vex announced, his silver skin gleaming under the lights. "You are being detained for your protection during this unfortunate conflict." Walker's eyes narrowed. "What conflict?" "Your species has demonstrated dangerous tendencies," Vex said, his voice suddenly cold. "The Council has voted to implement containment protocols. It is for the greater good of galactic stability." On Earth, the sky burned. Council ships emerged from jump points, their weapons tearing through the orbital defense platforms. The first strike had targeted communication arrays, leaving Earth's colonies cut off from home. Defense Minister Tom Davis watched the attack unfold from the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Status report," he barked. "Orbital defenses at 30% capacity and falling," reported Colonel Mary Wilson. "We've lost contact with the Moon base and Mars colony. New Hope and Frontier colonies are not responding to emergency channels." Davis's weathered face hardened. "They've been planning this for years." He entered a series of codes into his secure terminal. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Authorization Davis Alpha 74. "Sir, that's our only chance," Davis finished. "Send the signal. Now." At Liberty Colony, Emma Reed and her team worked frantically to save their research data. The colony's defenses were failing against the overwhelming Council force. "We need to reach the emergency shuttles," Paul shouted over the alarm klaxons. Emma shook her head, fingers flying over her console. "Not without this data. I found something, Paul. The Council ships, they all use the same shield frequency. It's their weakness." The building shook as another blast hit nearby. Ceiling panels crashed down around them. 5 more minutes, Emma insisted, copying files to a secure drive. This could save humanity. In space, Ambassador Walker and his staff had been locked in their quarters aboard the Council station. Walker paced the room, mind racing. "They're going to wipe us out," said his aide, voice shaking. "No," Walker said firmly. "They underestimate us. They always have." A soft chime came from the door panel. It slid open to reveal a Council technician with gray skin and large, luminous eyes. "Ambassador," the alien whispered, glancing nervously down the corridor. "I am gray. Not all Council members agree with this action. Follow me. Quickly." Walker hesitated only a moment before nodding to his staff. "Lead the way." Deep beneath Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, a hidden facility hummed to life. Massive hangar doors opened, revealing a fleet of ships unlike any the Council had seen. They were Earth's secret, vessels equipped with experimental drives and weapon systems developed without Council knowledge. Captain Joe Miller stood on the bridge of the flagship, the UES Retribution. "All ships report ready, sir," his tactical officer announced. Miller nodded grimly. "Commence Operation Counterattack. Let's show the Council they picked the wrong species to betray." On the Retribution's view screen, dozens of ships rose from their hidden base, their engines glowing blue against the backdrop of space. Meanwhile, aboard the escaping shuttle from Liberty Colony, Emma clutched the data drive to her chest as their small vessel dodged debris from the destroyed research station. "Where are we going?" Paul asked, strapping himself into the pilot's seat. "Titan Base," Emma replied. "It's off the official records. The Council doesn't know it exists." As their shuttle accelerated away from the burning colony, Emma looked back one last time at what had been their home, her jaw set with determination. "They thought they knew everything about us," she said quietly. "That was their first mistake." Across the solar system, humanity's scattered forces prepared to fight back. The Council had expected a swift victory against an unprepared species. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. 2 weeks after the Council's attack, humanity's survivors had scattered across the solar system. Hidden bases on asteroids, moons, and deep space stations became shelters for those who escaped the initial assault. Admiral Walker crouched in the dimly lit maintenance tunnel aboard the Council supply ship. Beside him, Gray worked to bypass the security panel. "How much further?" Walker whispered. "3 more sections," Gray replied, his large eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "The transport bay is not heavily guarded. Most security forces are deployed to the human colonies." Walker checked the stolen energy pistol. "Why are you helping us?" Gray's thin fingers paused over the circuits. "My species was once like yours. Independent. Curious. The Council came as friends, then took our freedom. We became servants." He looked at Walker. Not all Council members wanted this war. The panel blinked green. Gray stood. "This way." Meanwhile, in the hidden facility beneath Titan's frozen surface, Emma Reed worked tirelessly with her team of surviving scientists. The lab was crowded with equipment salvaged from Liberty Colony. "The shield frequency data is complete," Emma announced, rubbing her tired eyes. "Council ships use a modulation pattern that repeats every 12 seconds. That's our window." Dr. Bill Taylor, the weapons specialist, looked up from his workstation. "Can we exploit it?" "Yes," Emma said, pulling up a simulation on the main screen. A precisely timed pulse could create a cascade failure. Their shields would collapse completely. "How long to build a prototype?" asked Colonel Jim Banks, the military liaison. Emma exchanged glances with her team. 3 days. Maybe 2 if we work around the clock." "Make it 2, Banks replied. "We just received word that the Council has found our base on Ceres. Our people there won't last long." In the asteroid belt, Defense Minister Davis coordinated the resistance from a mobile command center hidden within a hollowed-out asteroid. Reports from across the system flashed on screens around him. "Council forces have established blockades around all major planets," reported his communications officer. "But they're still searching for our hidden bases." Davis studied the tactical display. "What about the Omega fleet?" "Captain Miller reports all ships operational. They're maintaining stealth positions in the Kuiper Belt." Davis nodded. "Tell Miller to prepare strike teams. Small, fast attacks on Council supply lines. We can't match their numbers, but we can bleed them." He turned to another screen showing a captured Council data file. "And what have we learned about our enemy?" A young intelligence analyst stepped forward. "Sir, we've decoded some of their internal communications. The Council species are terrified of us." "Terrified? They outnumber us 100 to 1. It's not our numbers they fear," the analyst explained. "It's our adaptability. Most Council species evolved in stable environments. They take centuries to adapt. Humans change in decades." She brought up another file. "And there's more. We found references to something called the human problem dating back to our first contact." "They planned this from the beginning," Davis realized. "Yes, sir. But there's something else." The analyst looked troubled. "The Council species can't survive the radiation levels humans tolerate daily. It's why they attacked our defense grid first. They feared our nuclear capabilities more than our fleet." Davis's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Get me Captain Miller. Immediately." Aboard the stolen Council shuttle, Walker and Gray, along with 5 human diplomats rescued from detention, accelerated away from the supply ship. "Where to now, Admiral?" asked one of the diplomats. Walker studied the ship's unfamiliar controls. "Titan. I received a coded message from Reed before communications went dark. She found something important." Gray adjusted the ship's transponder. "I can make us appear as a Council maintenance vessel. It should get us past the blockades." As the shuttle changed course towards Saturn, Walker gazed out at the stars. The Council thought they had broken humanity with their surprise attack. Instead, they had only revealed their own fear. And fear, Walker knew, was a weakness they could exploit. 1 month into the war, the tide began to shift. Council forces still controlled Earth's orbit and the major planets, but their supply ships were disappearing at an alarming rate. Human guerrilla forces struck without warning, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. In the war room beneath Titan's icy surface, Admiral Walker studied the tactical display with Emma Reed and Defense Minister Davis. The holographic map showed Council fleet positions throughout the solar system. "The shield disruptor works perfectly," Emma said, pride evident in her tired voice. 3 shots and their biggest battleship went dark. Walker nodded. "How many units do we have?" 50 so far, Davis replied. "We're installing them on all Omega fleet vessels and our fighter squadrons." Walker turned to Gray, who stood quietly in the corner. The alien had become a valuable ally, providing insider knowledge of Council tactics and technology. "Gray, you mentioned other species who resent Council rule. Can we contact them?" Gray stepped forward. "Many would help if they believed humans could win. The Terrians lost their homeworld to Council protection. The Brel were forced to become laborers, but all are watched closely. We need to show them we can fight back," Walker said. "And we need to do it soon." Across the room, a communications officer called out, "Sir, Captain Miller is reporting in. The Retribution has returned from its mission to Proxima Centauri." The main screen lit up with Captain Joe Miller's face. Behind him, his bridge crew worked at their stations. "Mission successful, Admiral," Miller reported. "We found the Council's forward operating base and destroyed it completely. They never saw us coming." Davis stepped forward. "Casualties?" "None, sir," Miller said with a grim smile. "The radiation belt around the target system was deemed hazardous by Council standards. Their sensors were minimal, but our crews handled it fine." Walker exchanged glances with Davis. This confirmed what they had learned. Human tolerance for radiation gave them a significant advantage. Council species evolved in protected environments, while Earth's higher background radiation had made humans naturally more resistant. "What about the colonists?" Walker asked. "We found 3,000 survivors hiding in the mines," Miller answered. "They're aboard now. And sir, they've been building something." The camera panned to show a stocky man in mining gear. "This is Ted Wilson, chief engineer of Proxima Colony." Wilson nodded. "When the Council attacked, we retreated to the deep mines. They couldn't follow. Too much radiation for them. So we started building." He held up a small device. "We call it the Screamer. It emits radiation at frequencies that are harmless to humans, but excruciating to Council species." Emma stepped closer to the screen. "May I see the specs?" As data transferred between the ships, Gray moved beside Walker. "This is why the Council feared humans," he whispered. "You don't just adapt, you weaponize your adaptations." In another part of the base, Paul Green worked with a team of communication specialists. They had been tasked with finding a way to bypass Council communication jammers. "I think we've got it," Paul said, adjusting the transmitter. "If we bounce the signal off the gas giant's magnetic fields, we can create a system-wide network they can't block." His supervisor nodded. "Good work. This will connect all our forces." Within hours, the Resistance had established secure communications across the solar system. Davis wasted no time in coordinating their counter-strategy. "Simultaneous strikes on all Council supply depots," he ordered. "Use the shield disruptors and the Screamers. Hit them where they're vulnerable, then disappear." Across the system, human strike teams received their orders. Small, fast ships slipped past Council patrols, their crews ready to strike. Aboard the Council command ship, High Counselor Vex received disturbing reports from all sectors. "Impossible," he muttered, reviewing the casualty figures. "How are they doing this?" A subordinate approached cautiously. "High Counselor, we've detected unusual activity near Jupiter. It appears the humans have established a base inside the radiation belt." Vex stared in disbelief. "Inside? No Council species could survive there." "Humans can," the subordinate replied quietly. "And we cannot follow." For the first time, Vex felt something he had never expected: fear of the very species they had tried to subjugate. 3 months into the conflict, the Galactic Council's invasion had stalled. Their initial advantage was gone. Human forces had reclaimed Mars and established defensive positions throughout the solar system. The Council still held Earth in a blockade, but their grip was weakening. On Titan Base, Admiral Walker stood before the gathered military and civilian leaders of the Resistance. The room fell silent as he stepped up to the command platform. "Today we take back our home," Walker announced. His voice was firm, carrying to every corner of the room. "But first, we give them one chance to leave peacefully." Murmurs spread through the crowd. After all the destruction, after all the lives lost, many wanted revenge, not mercy. Defense Minister Davis raised his hand. "Admiral, with respect, they showed us no mercy. Why offer them any?" Walker's expression remained calm. "Because we're better than them. And I want them to know it." He nodded to Emma Reed, who stepped forward with a small device in her hands. "This is a quantum broadcaster," she explained. "It can penetrate Council communication blocks and send a message to every Council ship and colony simultaneously. They won't be able to stop the transmission." Walker looked around the room. "The Council attacked us because they feared what we might become. Let's show them exactly what that is." An hour later, preparations were complete. The Omega fleet had moved into position, hidden but ready. Strike teams waited near key Council installations. The quantum broadcaster was linked to all human outposts. Walker stood before the camera. Gray and Emma flanked him on either side. "Ready when you are, Admiral," said the communications officer. Walker straightened his uniform and nodded. "Begin transmission." Across the galaxy, on every Council world and vessel, screens flickered to life. Communication systems activated without authorization. Even personal devices displayed the same image. "Admiral James Walker of Earth. Attention, Galactic Council." Walker began, his voice level and calm. "I am Admiral James Walker, speaking on behalf of humanity." In the Council's Grand Chamber, High Counselor Vex and the gathered representatives watched in shock. "How is this possible?" demanded one counselor. "Our systems are secure." Vex remained silent, eyes fixed on the human's face. 3 months ago," Walker continued, "you attacked Earth and our colonies without provocation. You slaughtered civilians. You attempted to exterminate our species because you feared our potential." Walker leaned closer to the camera. "That was a mistake." He stepped aside, revealing a tactical display showing Council fleet positions throughout human space. "We know where every one of your ships is located. We have the technology to defeat your shields. We have weapons that can target your species specifically without harming others." Gray stepped forward. "I am Gray of the Terrian people. I witnessed this warning. Many subject species stand ready to join humanity against Council oppression." Walker returned to center frame. "You have one chance to withdraw from human space. One chance to end this conflict without further bloodshed. Return to your territories and leave us in peace." In the Council chamber, a reptilian representative leaped to his feet. "This is a bluff. They cannot threaten the Council." Vex raised a hand for silence, watching as Walker delivered his final words. "You have 24 hours to begin withdrawal. After that, we will remove you by force." Walker's eyes were steel. "This is not a negotiation. This is mercy, something you didn't show us." The transmission ended, leaving Council chambers across the galaxy in uproar. On the Council homeworld, the Secret Council gathered in emergency session. "They cannot possibly defeat our combined fleets," insisted one ancient member. "They have already destroyed 30% of our forces in their system," countered another, "with minimal losses." Vex looked around the table. "I recommend immediate withdrawal. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we did not anticipate." "Never," shouted the head counselor. "We do not retreat before lesser species." As the Council argued, human forces waited. Aboard the flagship Retribution, Captain Miller watched the countdown timer. "Do you think they'll withdraw?" asked his first officer. Miller shook his head. "No, pride won't let them. But we had to give them the chance." "Why?" "Because," Miller said quietly, "that's what makes us different from them." Throughout the solar system, human ships prepared for battle. The final countdown had begun. The 24 hours passed. The Council ships remained in position around Earth and the colonies. Their answer was clear. They would not retreat. Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of the Retribution, having transferred his flag to the powerful warship for the final battle. Captain Miller stood at his side as they watched the massive Council armada on the main view screen. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Miller said. "Shield disruptors are charged and targeting systems are locked." Walker nodded. "And the special package?" "In position near the Council flagship. They haven't detected it." Walker took a deep breath. This was humanity's moment of truth. "Signal all ships. Operation Daybreak begins now." Throughout the solar system, human vessels emerged from hiding places. They appeared from within the radiation belts of Jupiter, from the dark side of moons, from asteroid fields, and from the clouds of Saturn, places the Council ships couldn't effectively monitor. On the Council flagship, alarms blared as sensors detected the sudden appearance of hundreds of human vessels. "Impossible," High Counselor Vex exclaimed. "Their fleet was destroyed in the first attack." His tactical officers stared at the displays in shock. They'd been hiding, building ships we didn't know about. And they're everywhere at once. Before Vex could issue orders, every light on his ship flickered and died. Emergency systems failed. Gravity disappeared. They floated in darkness. Similar scenes played out across the Council fleet. One by one, their mighty warships went dark. No explosions, no destruction, just complete system failure. Near Earth's orbit, Emma Reed monitored the effect of her creation from a small stealth ship. The targeted electromagnetic pulse had worked perfectly, designed specifically to affect Council technology while leaving human systems untouched. "All Council capital ships neutralized," she reported over the secure channel. "Their weapons and propulsion are offline." In Council space, far from the battle, news of the human counterattack spread quickly among the subjugated species. The Terrians, inspired by Gray's message alongside Walker, rose up against their Council overseers. The Brel stopped work in the Council mines. 6 other species joined the rebellion within hours. Back in Earth orbit, Walker's voice transmitted to every disabled Council vessel. "Your ships are powerless, but your life support remains functional. We could have destroyed you completely. Remember that." Transport ships approached the disabled Council vessels, carrying boarding parties, not to kill, but to escort the Council forces to detention areas. Walker turned to Gray. "Send the second message to all Council worlds." Gray nodded and activated the quantum broadcaster again. This time, the message showed the disabled Council fleet, and beside it, images of Council atrocities against other species over the centuries, records Gray had secretly gathered. "The Council has lied to you," Walker's voice announced to billions across Council space. "They claim to protect the galaxy, but they have subjugated and exploited dozens of species. Today, that ends." 3 days later, in the reclaimed Council chamber aboard their station, Walker met with representatives from 12 formerly subjugated species. High Counselor Vex sat at the table, no longer a ruler but a prisoner awaiting judgment. "The Council leadership will face trial for war crimes," Walker announced. "But there will be no collective punishment of Council species. We are not conquerors. We are liberators." A tall Terrian stood. "What happens now? Who will govern in the Council's place?" Walker shook his head. "Not who. What? A new charter based on true cooperation, not domination. Each species with equal voice, regardless of technology level or military power." Vex finally spoke, his voice bitter. "You could have destroyed us all. Why didn't you?" Walker looked at him steadily. Because the true measure of advancement isn't technology or power. It's wisdom and compassion. You attacked us because you feared we would become like you. He gestured to the gathered representatives. Instead, we've become something better. As the meeting continued, Emma Reed and Paul Green stood on an observation deck, watching Earth below. For the first time in months, ships moved freely between the planet and space. "Do you think it will last?" Paul asked. "This peace," Emma smiled. "It will take work. But humanity just showed the galaxy our greatest strength, which is, we can choose mercy even when vengeance is justified." She turned to look at the stars beyond, and that's why they'll never need to fear us again.